Yeah, I see more people waiting.
Yeah, we're live, I think, Daniel.
Great. So, welcome everybody. My name is Daniel de la Fuente. I'm the service design lead at George Labs, and I'm super excited to be here with my dear colleague Lobro. Hi, Lobro.
Hi, Daniel. I'm also super excited. Today we're having a nice guest from France, Jean-Baptiste. Please introduce yourself as well.
Sure, thank you so much. Pleasure to be here as well. I am Jean-Baptiste, I'm the head of design at Bpifrance. And today, we are going to talk about transformation and especially transforming from an investment bank to a fintech, which is a pretty tough challenge and some few insights we gather along the way with the design team.
So, before we go into the topic, John, how many designers do you have within your team? And if you could tell us a little bit about the specific roles and responsibilities, would be very, very also interesting for us to know.
Sure, of course. So maybe just in few words, because I'm going to start with that the talk. So we actually scale really the design ladder a lot from
Mm-hmm.
we joined the company like in 2021, early 2021, to 4 designers to more than 25 these days. So pretty nice scale. And obviously this is totally combined about what we are doing currently and the scale of our experiences and products. And in few words, so Bpifrance is a bank that is a little bit special because we are half public. We are working with the French state. We are also working with other banks, and we are working with the entire French economical and entrepreneurial ecosystem. I think it's interesting to see from this perspective all the about the idea about transformation. So yeah, that's a really short context just to give you a little hint about
Yeah,
what we're going to talk
I,
about.
I'm super curious about this transformation because, I mean, saying that you transform from a kind of traditional bank to a fintech, it's not an easy task. So I wonder how this was initiated. Like, was this tech driven, design driven? So maybe you could tell us a little bit about that. Would be super nice.
Sure, of course. And honestly, it's still work in progress because even though we've made a lot, we have a lot also to accomplish in the future. And I think it's a combination between obviously strong a perspective and really a strong design acumen we developed, and also it's very interesting because it's a cultural challenge for sure. It's a cultural transformation, but also it's something that we had into our DNA as a very traditional bank, and putting the digital and the design perspective was just increasing what we were doing before actually. So it was just not really changing what we were doing, but just putting it into like a new way. And since we are a bank that is a little bit particular, it's continuing to this idea about developing the singularity in a way.
Hmm. Awesome. So Laura, tell to the audience what can they expect for today's expert talk. It's our last one before our big event.
Yes, exactly. So today, Jean will tell us a little bit more about the digital transformation in BPI France. It's going to be a half an hour talk approximately, and afterwards we're going to have some time for a Q&A session. So if you have any questions to the speaker, please feel free to ask any questions in the chat. And since we're growing our YouTube channel, I would give a big call to action for you to please subscribe to our channel. We're trying to really grow the audience of design community. And yeah, with that said, handing over to you, Jean.
Thank you so much. So, okay, let's do that. Let's jump into our talk today. So normally you should be able to see a few elements from my screen. And if that's okay, let's jump into today's talk. So as you introduced, we're talking about transformation and also moving from what we used to have as a traditional investment bank to simple and delightful experiences. So I told you a little bit about what is Bpifrance, but just in depth so that you have a better context. So Bpifrance is the French State Bank of Entrepreneur, and actually it has been created 10 years ago by the French government. And so our mission is to finance and support all entrepreneurs' life. So we are focusing on the entire life cycle of entrepreneurs, from really, really small companies to companies that goes abroad. And obviously, we're a bank, so we are helping companies with financial solutions, so loan, grant, imprints, bank guarantees, etc., etc. We have more than 300 solutions of financial, I would say, financial type solution. And we didn't just limit to financing and investing into companies. We are also supporting them and supporting entrepreneurs with beyond banking solutions. So, for example, consulting solutions or connecting entrepreneurs together or helping entrepreneurs to reduce their carbon footprint, for example. So we do have this really wide array of solutions, and we actually like to compare ourselves to a toolbox for entrepreneurs. And it's literally what we are. And the thing is, if we really get into what is the core value of Bpifrance, is really to be able to help entrepreneur to grow, to really be a coach for entrepreneur. And we even in our positioning and how we were creating, we are working with the state, we are working with funds, we are working with retail banks, and with we do have this entire network of bankers. We have more than 2,000 bankers. We have 50 offices in France. So we have this really established experience that is at the beginning 0% digital, that is totally in person. And so we had in our DNA the idea of speed, the idea of optimism, because the thing is, being an entrepreneur is a challenge, actually. So with the variety of solution we have that is both financial and non-financial, we have an amazing playground because we can probably solve all entrepreneur challenges. And as I said, being an entrepreneur is pretty tough, and some of you might be entrepreneur as well. Having a company is complex. Dealing with your company's life cycle and growth is a challenge. And we believe that a bank should be a mentor and a coach for you. So we believe that financing solution and financing experiences should be a relief and not a pain for entrepreneurs. And especially in these, let's say, harsh economical context where there's a lot of stress regarding financial experiences, that should be the case more than ever. So this is basically our challenge. And as I said, we are not a tech company. We are an investment bank, a traditional investment bank with a physical network with bankers. And we started, let's say, 7 years ago to really transform our experiences. And this is basically the beginning of our journey. And so I'm a little bit taking few years ahead. We started this journey in like late 2020, 2021. And at that time, so there is this idea about transforming a company and trying to create platform to help companies and all our users on a digital also aspect. When I say that, we are talking to obviously entrepreneurs that are our end clients, but also investors, but also our network of bankers and our partners. So really wide range of end users. And what you can see here was the only platform that was existing at that time, and that was the dashboard that our clients, so companies, entrepreneurs, were using when they were starting to refund their loan, basically. And even though the wording is in French, you might have some issue to really determine what is the value proposition, what the usage of this platform. And as I said, we are an investment bank, so we do not offer business banking solutions. So no business banking account, no credit card. So this was actually the first the first pain point that we had at that time, is that our first user that were using the platform had a little bit of struggle to really determine what this product or this platform was about. And the reason why is, even though the platform was existing and some features were developed as well, The feature were more developed on a like really technical standpoint, so they were working, but there was no real traction on the product. And two, I would say, main reason for that. The first one is the product was really built on how the organization was working, so complexity and very siloed, and how the tech was also working. So in the end, it was done, but there was really few traction on that. So from there, we actually jump into today. We actually created several platforms and we successfully demonstrated impact for all our end users, so clients, entrepreneurs and investors, our network of bankers, and all our partners. And this is actually still a journey that is still in work in progress, but from there is literally 8 insights I would like to share with you today that we learn actually along the way. And that also highlights how do we, obviously we failed a lot, but how do we can really make that transformation impacting not just for the company, but also for the experience and our end users. So if we start, we are going really to start into understanding the first a few insights are understanding users and understanding business. When I say that, it is literally not rocket science. It's very common. But what we've been learning and doing is obviously the starting point from our transformation and what we do every day as designers is really understanding our users. So in our case, we had a really wide range of end users. We didn't just want it to understand on the surface their issue, because we really wanted to really understand their behavior, also their unmet needs or their challenges. And to do that, we developed actually a toolbox for conducting all type of studies and make designers really efficient into really determine and understanding in-depth users. So a few examples here. The first one, what you can see here on the screen, is a still image extracted from a video snippet that we utilize a lot into the company to make learning tangible. And here, this is extracted from an interview we had with a client that explained how he does his monthly installment on a spreadsheet. So very understanding some key behavior and some key patterns. The second one was obviously to also not just reproduce certain situation, but see also what was happening into our product. So here you can see a recording on a user that is a real user that uses the platform and tries to figure out something and apparently is lost. And obviously that gives a lot of precise insights on here. What also we've been doing is plug in, since we had this enormous playground, we needed to learn very quickly. And we obviously developed certain tactics. One was to really reduce our time to insight. And by doing so, adding some, being able to collect data very quickly. So for example, here you see the dashboard that is used every day by our bankers. And we are putting certain message. So for example, here at the top of the screen, or at certain step within the flow to trigger them with survey or other type of way we could collect their feedback, so that we could have high volume of feedback in a really short period of time. So for example, here asking them what are the top documents that their clients are asking them the most. And in few hours, we can gather hundreds of responses. And finally, since we started to develop some entire flows and entire experiences, we had an overview about those entire experiences, and we define specific moment when we could measure how was the experiences we were delivering. So to do that, we use 3 types of indicators. The first one is CES, so customer effort score, to really measure an effort related to certain action, something you can see here at the screen. The idea of satisfaction with CSAT, so customer satisfaction at a product or a feature level. And finally, obviously, NPS, but first of all, real NPS, just to measure the holistic experience that is not just digital, but that really covers the entire flow from digital and also in-person experience, so that we can really measure it, obviously, those indicators, and much more importantly, get some precise verbatim and have it in at scale, so that we could learn and create those really efficient way, endless loop of feedback with almost no cost. So toolbox to really understand obviously our users and be really precise to create some experiences and products that will obviously fulfill their need. Moving to the second insight and second learning is obviously, since we had this enormous playground, we needed to focus on specific areas when we could drive impact. And that's also a very strong thing we need to develop. By doing that, we need also to make all as designers more develop our acumen with business knowledge. And to do that, we've been able, since we understood the weak point of opportunity from our users, we needed to combine and do the same thing internally to determine where we had the most impact on the business landscape. Two examples on that. The first one is from the research we've made with our users. And what you see at the left of the screen is a loan timesheet. And what we discover is when our client was starting to refund their loan, we discovered during our user research that they needed to have a copy of this document. So if we just jump into that type of document, this is like a PDF document that just gives you your literally the detail of your loan. So your monthly installment and the overall data depending on your loan. And so our clients were telling us that they needed this copy of this document. So what they did at that time, they were contacting the Bpifrance representative. And the thing was that our banker didn't have this information at a glance. So our banker needed to look up internally, gather the data, and send them back to their clients. So obviously that was a lot of waste of time. And we could just stop here, but we determined that our user didn't actually wanted to have a copy of this document, because when we get deeper on that challenge, we saw that they were taking the data from this document, usually taking those into a spreadsheet and doing the math themselves. And what was the key goal at the end was not just to get the data, but to measure their monthly installment and see if they could potentially reimburse all their monthly installment for all their loans in a certain period of time. From there, we move on. So what you see here at the right is the revamped dashboard, as you saw earlier, where there is a special section where you can compare in real time all your monthly installment and your cash flow from all your different bank accounts. And obviously, with doing that, we remove all the operational that was done before by the bankers. So we accelerate the bankers' efficiency, and those feature then later on were part from the move from just offering just a singular dashboard to a dashboard and offering subscription plan. So for the first time, our user were paying to access certain features, such as this one. And today, this feature is the first one to drive conversion to those paid services. So pretty interesting to see the entire story. The second one is not related to something that was existing before that we revamped, is really something we created from the ground up. So we made two things at the before the beginning of the Ukraine crisis and after COVID. We do combine market research and user research, and we determined that small companies have a really issue with just to pay their day-to-day expenses, so their business expenses. And the reason that is the economical context at that time makes a huge pressure on rates, and that's really the beginning of the increase of the banking rates. And so when we compare that to user research, we determined that for those particular segment of small companies, the main issue with banking experience is, the first thing is transparency and trust and speed. And especially small companies have a huge pressure on their day-to-day cash management. So from there, we literally create this platform, and that was for the first time we were doing credit that was doing 100% online. So none of our banker were implied into that sales experience of really small loans. And so we created this platform where everything turns around speed. And so what you can see on the right is you just answer a few simple questions. We do background analysis, and if you're eligible, then you can do your loan application. That probably takes around like 10 to 15 minutes. where everything is digitalized. And if your loan is accepted, then 7 days after, you have your cash on your business banking account. So it's very interesting. And even in the smaller detail, everything turns around speed. And in terms of impact, literally on those type of small companies, we have divided by 3 the acquisition cost for those type of clients. So that does a great transition from, so we understand users, we identify the sweet spots between how do we make the best impact for our users and business, and then how we can create great experiences on that. So this is jumping to the next insight. So at that time, we were creating more and more interfaces. And obviously, our key challenge and the key learning here is how we can find consistency, but also adding uniqueness into our experiences, such as you saw just earlier with Flash, where everything turns around this idea of speed. So that was really the starting point from obviously our design system that does not limit to component. So component, but also replicable patterns and even entire flows. Because what we want to do is finding some common patterns and familiarity for all our end users, and obviously for us as designers and all the product teams to be able to focus their energy on adding the detail that will change the difference and be able to reuse things that were working fine. So that's also the starting point of, as I said, our design system, but more around that, design guidelines and patterns that really encapsulate all those patterns. An example to highlight that is, for example, this particular screen. To have to tell you a little of a context, one of the key pain points we understood from our users during the entire life cycle with Bpifrance was that they were sending the same document over and over again. And this is obviously was very confusing and annoying for them. So we tackled that, and we added some few reassuring elements in several moments in the flow, such as the one you can see here, which is animated. And so that we can really focus on adding this level of feedback on when you send a new document, because obviously we revamped all our IT and process behind that. It will be safe forever, and we won't ask it again later. So in that case, we were using similar pattern and common pattern for our loan applications, such as all the components you see on the screen, but just designer could focus on that particular design challenge, and obviously keeping similarity, but also creating positive experience. The second insight on this family of creating great experiences is how we can apply and create the great experiences for all our users. We don't want to just focus obviously on our external users, such as our investor and clients, but we want to have the same level of care for all platforms, which by saying that is a real change, is because we want obviously to focus our energy when we have the most impact. But by telling that, we don't want to reduce the experience for example, our bankers or like internal tools that are usually less crafted than other interfaces. And when I say that, we learned that we used basically the same design principle. And we just varied a bit. So for our external user, we want to focus a lot on excitement for our clients and investors, so that they are really happy and enjoy and create delightful experience for them. For our bankers, for example, we want to really emphasize on the idea of transparency and care. So for example, here, what you see on the screen is a tool that was made for our bankers that help them to see if a product, so here a financial product, is eligible for a certain company. So if they have a client, they can see before suggesting this product if this company is eligible to that. Here, we are not replacing the job of the banker. What we are doing is we are focusing a lot on visual hierarchy and transparency, so that we can help the banker in their day-to-day life, basically, so that they have the final decision. We are not doing the work for them, but we are focusing on that. And by creating those interfaces and products that are very with a high legibility and usability, then we can also create not just trust for external user, but also trust from internal user to what we are creating. Obviously, and we talked a little bit before at the beginning, we had obviously this huge scale. So from more than 25 designers, mainly product designers that are integrated into our more than 30 product teams. It's a pretty challenge to keep everything aligned and every designer aligned about how what we all creating. So to do that, the main challenge, and that's still the main challenge actually, to foster this collaborative and safe space for all designers. And by doing that, obviously, it's creating space and moments that they can connect dots, and also create and constantly innovate on our guidelines, our design system, or the way of working on new framework, something like that. An example here we had, and it was very powerful, is at certain step the team is big, and so you need to reinvent each time. What we've been doing, and an example I wanted to share with you today is one, if we needed to keep like one thing, that would be this weekly meeting we run every week, that all designers are involved and they are all participating. Obviously are grouped into certain area of products and experiences, and they are all sharing either one thing they've been working on, a learning that could be from their user, from the business, or from elsewhere, and a potential pain point or a challenge they want to tackle. And so that we've been able to share to the entire community and designer what are all the topics that are currently running, and connect dots more efficiently. And so the next one is about how do we, as you just said, connecting designers together, but foster all design expertise. I was saying mainly product designers, and obviously product designers that are all very different in terms of skills and hard skills and soft skills. But also ICs that are working within the entire organization. So content design, UX writing, research ops, motion design, visual design, etc., etc. And our goal here is really to focus on the overall experiences and add those specific expertise to really leverage the entire experience. The example here is something that was really led by design and especially UX writing, which, by the way, I think it's very critical, especially in fintech experiences or any other regulated field, because we are very constrained. Obviously, we need to match certain regulatory requirements. We want to be safeguarding against certain risks, but also UX writing is a key opportunity to make certain steps or asking for our user very comprehensive for them. So the entire work we've made around tone of voice and transparency for this very diverse array of end user is very interesting. And this is a pretty good example. So this was extracted from our loan application we had at that time. And here, the two screens, so the before and after, is literally the same step. So the underlying UX is the same. And so here, the step was, we were asking our user if they wanted to how they wanted to verify their identity. So just a regular KYC procedure. And they had the choice, either taking a digital, doing a digital experience or digital flow, doing selfie and showing and scanning your ID, passport, or whatever, or booking a meeting with a Bpifrance representative. Obviously, the second option is very costly for us and reduces the entire expenses, because obviously it increases the lead time. And what we discovered here was there was actually a lot of manual face matching. What we learned here, what we saw, is that we could really add more transparency into this process. And this was also gathered with learning we had from our user, that we know that there was a key change about how the data is processed and how do we use that, or the partners we are working with. So we revamped this screen. So as I said, same UX. We just really focused on the content and how do we use data. And the results are pretty interesting, because we moved from an average of 30 face matching per month to 0, and we've been able to reduce an approximately a 50-hour a month by the operational team, so, because we had full face matching that were done online. So it was increasing the experience for the user, and also in terms of business metric, it was huge, and still really driven by this design expertise, and not just content on itself or just UX on itself, but really the combination of those expertise. So we've been talking about understanding users and business, creating and crafting great experiences. And to the two last insights are really focused on what we are doing for products and what we've been doing internally in the company. The next insight is about obviously one of maybe the most important superpower of designer is the ability of prototyping stuff. And by doing that, and we do that a lot, we use a lot of concept and artifact to really showcase what our vision is about. And obviously, when I'm telling that can be really conceptual artifacts, or some that are really close from a real interface. And it is not just about putting interface, and even though it in the end that might be very different from the end result, but the goal here is to express a certain idea of experience first, and in order to align the organization on the problem we want to solve, align stakeholders, and align all people that are either from the product teams or abroad, and be able to showcase that and make those learning tangible. As I said, a prototype is a good way to do that. And finally, this is a good transition on those learnings. And so those learnings are extremely obviously wide. It can be obviously those mockups, that can be even those very tangible insight from our research. So really short video snippets, or some even still images that showcase certain situations, or even other I would say other type of learning. So for example, what you can see here on the screen is something we made a few months ago, was a blueprint of all our experiences, integrating all our touch points. And why we did that is obviously we needed to gather this knowledge somewhere, and because we didn't have it, funnily enough. And also we could use it a lot, not just for the design team, but for everyone. And this is the last insight. Once we've all created this learning and those artifacts, we can share them. So for example, those blueprints can be integrated into onboarding kits for newcomers that join the company, or the type of artifact we want to share. And it's not about just putting them as a self care, but also being able to share them and share story about how do we use that, how do we use those as a tool, also just to move from certain people in the organization thinking straight away to a solution, or I want to create this platform, or I want to add this this element into that certain step. But we need to dezoom and add a good level of discussion that is definitely for what is the experience of our end users, and to have the high level pitch for that. And finally, we talk about a lot of artifacts that could be also artifacts that are really used by the designers. For example, our design principle and all the guidelines. So very, let's say, conceptual artifact that can be used by the entire organization just to inspire, and also to learn how the product were created, and why design is much more than just creating interfaces, and should be and is now more and more integrated into the organization strategy. So obviously, as I said, this journey is still work in progress. From the beginning of the journey, when I was talking about the only platform that was existing, we launched several more platforms, more than 15 actually, but it's not really the matter of the metric, the figure. It's about creating those platforms for all that various end users, clients, investors, bankers, all this array of partners, and being able to showcase impact. So for example, the last platform we released was the one you can see here that is animated. And is a new challenge for us. It is a platform for the first time that is addressed to retail, so B2C application for the first time. And we are creating this platform for all French citizens that want to invest and diversify their assets. And if they want to invest into French or European companies through private equity, they can do that totally online and for the first time for a really small investment ticket. So still work in progress, still a lot of things to do, but that was the key insight I wanted to share with you today. And before we wrap up, a little TLDR about what we talked about today. So huge scale of the design ladder with designers that are integrated into our product teams, tech, product design, and data. And the insight were about how do we make designer, but just not designer, all the organization really keen of understanding users and business in depth. How do we create as leaders and are all people in the organization teams and we really accountable for experience and craft and work-life experiences? And how do we use as designers design tools and design methodology to accelerate this transformation, just for our end users, but use the same tools from within the company to transform the organization and to accelerate this journey. So that's it for today. Maybe jumping to you, Lavro or Daniel, if
yeah, thank you so much. Has been really, really incredible. So I really couldn't agree more with design is more than interfaces, 100%. And it's really beautiful to see as well how, I think you just mentioned it a few seconds ago, how design is also impacting within the organization, not just our end customers, but also through the whole organization. So maybe before we go into the next slide, maybe just stay here with a few questions, Lobro. Is it fine for you to start with a few questions?
Sure. So, I would have one. Or do you want to go first, Daniel?
Well, yes, if it's possible. I'm curious about the whole accessibility topic. How important it is for you in France? Is it something you already covered? Is it already a past story, or I don't know, history, or is it also still a relevant topic for you?
It's a very, first of all, it's a very good question. No, it's so two things. So in France, it's definitely a huge topic. And there are some really precise regulation on that, especially if you are a big company. And we are, first of all, a big company, and obviously we are really close from the French, government. So we need to be as example on that. There is an amazing work that has been made by the team that is working and that created the design system for the French government that really pushes a lot of topics, but especially accessibility topics. So yeah, we need to be, let's say, really good on those topics. Today, it's still a work in progress, a challenge for us. Definitely integrated into our design system strategy as the same level as how do we make components and until going to entire experience that are accessible, utilizable, desirable, etc., etc. So we want to build really accessibility from the ground up. This is a challenge because obviously we do have a lot of internal tools, especially that we need to revamp with those new design system or the new design guidelines. So we need to revamp a lot of existing products that currently are not accessible, but we believe that we need to integrate accessibility, and I was mentioning integrating all design expertise at once, and that's the same thing. We're not thinking about doing accessibility on top of what we are doing. It should be integrated from the ground up, and it shouldn't be a constraint also. We from that we see accessibility, especially if there is a strong regulation, as it is a constraint. No, it's just the minimum. And what we create a standard, experience or standard quality, accessibility should be something. It shouldn't be compromised to that. So this is the vision, and obviously we are working on it. Taking longer than expected, but yeah, working on it, and it's a key challenge also for us because we are serving a very wide array of end users. So we need to be very good on that.
Thank you. Maybe just connecting my previous question with the design systems, because you mentioned that accessibility should be, let's say, covered or out of the box from component perspective. Adding to that, do you have some certain design principles as part of the design system? Could you share some of them?
Yeah, so actually, and maybe just to add a little bit more detail, so integrated into the design system, like on a component level, but also that doesn't just limit to that. It's component, it's also patterns, even like entire flow. So how do we make sure that, accessibility is just not a matter of like one component, but when you play with like n component, how do you make sure that you don't decreases, the entire accessibility or utilizability of your interface. So this is a key change for us. And to answer the second question, yeah, so we do actually have a various design principle. And the first, maybe I can pick up one, basically, is about...
Also, sorry to interrupt you, John. Maybe you could also remove the screen so that we can
let's do that.
Get bigger on the screen, and
yeah,
people will not have
this
to.
Screen is
Yeah.
I think we get the entire TLDR.
Yes.
Yeah, so one example of design principle we have is, for example, how do we add, the one is called transparency. So for example, how do we add transparency to our experiences? Obviously, when we say transparency, it's very wide. It can be, transparency, and I talked a little bit about with an example with the writing. How do we do like transparency in terms of data, and how do we use that for our external users? But also, how do we apply, this principle also for transparency from also within the organization? So we try to make also those, and it's still a work in progress approach, that those design principles are obviously can resonate obviously into the product and experiences we are creating, but also it can be applied into what we are as a company. So for example, the transparency design principle obviously can be integrated into like how do you design an organization, for example.
Yeah, I think definitely it's a win-win situation for both customers and the organization. And I think it's super relevant topic in the banking industry. So trust is everything.
Yeah. And building trust is a challenge. There is no magic answer for that.
Yeah.
All right, I would have some more questions for you.
Sure.
You were talking also a lot about the design system. At the beginning of your transformation, was it already there, or did you start all over again? And how did it evolve over the years?
That's a pretty good change we have, and we still have actually. So at the beginning, we didn't have any actually design system. So we did have the few platform we had at the time were just literally, so it was very siloed in terms of the way that they were created. So we had like nothing merged, neither from the design perspective or the tech perspective as well. And the beginning of the design system was actually it was actually started by the development team that started to create common components or patterns just for their efficiency, because either replicating the same thing, they were just sharing snippets of code to replicate a thing more efficiently. And that actually was the beginning of what we were actually the foundation of our real design system. We're working with obviously all the foundations, so typography, color, etc. So really the lowest level of our design system, defining the most used components, and more and more, and we are still into that currently because we are scaling a lot, integrating into our design system some patterns. So for example, when a team works on, for example, a way to connect your bank's account. So you have a pattern, several screens that are part of a flow. We want to add that into our system so that the pattern can be replicable with other teams. And when I'm telling you this example, this is a very common thing we do. A lot of teams are working with connecting banking accounts. So and more we want to integrate even entire flows. So for example, like a loan application, we do have a lot of variety of certain loans. But then in the end, it's always the three same thing. You have the beginning of your loan applications, where you give you certain information, the document you need, etc. You have the end steps that is into the flow, and then you have the end. And basically, we want to integrate everything into our design system so that it's easy to replicate and just do the minor changes for the teams, actually. So that it's just not because what we actually failed the first time was just creating this library. Design system was just literally just a library in terms of design and code. And in the end, it was not really solving any problem because even though it was reusable, we couldn't maintain any consistency because with few components, you can do several types
of
the
course,
same
yeah.
interfaces.
So a lot of product teams are also contributing towards the design system nowadays, I guess. Whenever a component or a flow is finalized and should be used by other teams, I guess they contribute back to the design system, right?
Yeah, exactly. And honestly, for now, we didn't find the magic trick. We're still experimenting, and it's a key challenge. We know that we don't want to add everything obviously in our design system because we have several dozens of use cases. And we don't want to reproduce the error from the past. But also, so we want to really find the sweet spot. And even today, we are still figuring out how do we want to do that. And so that the design system is something that really helps all the product teams, so tech, product, and design, and it is not something that constrains innovation or constrains speed also. So we really need to figure out, and it's honestly a key challenge. Yeah. Just to give you a little metric, we have more than in terms of external websites, more than 110 websites. So it's we need to also do all the strategy of not just creating this great design system, but adopting into all our interfaces and even just static, websites. So it's a long journey that is.
All right. We also have a question from the chat. So what design considerations are you taking into account specifically to address the needs of business banking or business banking customers versus retail? And that's also something that I wrote down for myself from your presentation. Not only business versus retail, but what would interest me as well would be early stage entrepreneur versus already established on the market company.
Yeah, so it's very interesting. So maybe for maybe the first part of the question, it's pretty easy because the first product we released, and actually we just updated this product. We started actually 1 year ago this platform for democratizing private equity. So for the first time, we were doing products for retail, and it was very funny because we started from like a blank page. We knew nothing about just fellow people like you and me that want to a small amount of their saving into companies. So we actually did the same design process and research than we would do for entrepreneurs. So probably the same thing. The other challenge we have is that we know that as I said, we have a really wide array of end users, and if we just zoom in entrepreneur, there is obviously totally different needs from really early stage companies and bigger ones. What we want to create is really this combination from this in-person experience and the digital one. And we know that the ratio are going to change. So for example, really small company that just want a small credit, a small loan, they can go on Bpifrance Flash, the platform I was showing to you earlier, and everything is digitalized. So you have like no in-person experience. Then your company started to grow, and then you want to be, a mentor and supported and have some, the key insight about what is the best solution, for me. Is it like maybe a loan? Is it maybe another type of solution? And so here, our digital experiences are facilitating their to really connect with the Bpifrance banker. But in the end, the coaching is done by by a human actually, and more
Yeah,
and
so
more the
this
company
is
is
the
growing.
advisor, right, John?
Sorry.
Sorry to interrupt you. This is the advisor. The
Yeah.
advisor is jumping in and facilitating this process.
Exactly. And then it's an hybrid experience, because then you are probably going to move on a loan application where part of it is digital, because you can fill some information, online. You can sign your contract online, for example. And then you want to, manage your loan, and it's still online, or an online-based experience. And at some point, you might, become a really, really big company, and you as the entrepreneur, the CEO of your company, you will hire a team, and you will, delegate, this task to like a CFO, for example. And this CFO will be, the one in charge with Bpifrance, either digital or in person. And then maybe you will become like a really, really big company, and you will have several Bpifrance advisors. And at that moment, the online experience is very minimal, basically. It's very uncertain things, very operational stuff, because you have this in-person contact, that is in person, that is, by phone. So we create and find the best way, depending on the entire life cycle of entrepreneurs.
Very nice. Thanks a lot. Also adding a little bit onto that, because you were mentioning the survey that you had with a lot of responses. Is there any other type of feedback channels that you use in particular to measure how something performs with an early stage company, a medium-sized company, and so on?
Yeah, so we do actually have, studies and research that is made for certain, certain exploration, certain features, certain product. So as I was mentioning, seeing what is happening on the product, surveys we can put in certain step of the flow and things like that. And we are also another way of doing continuous research. So I was, mentioning what we were collecting with our CES, CSAT, or NPS, that is constant loop of, a measurement of the experience, and also those, open-ended questions when we can, know a lot. And we also combine that with, continuous research to be able to, on a weekly basis, interact with entrepreneur, and be just able to really understand their either their relationship with banks, or what they are using, not just into their banking services, but like accounting, or HR, or things like that. And we want to have a better understanding on the entire life cycle. Obviously, we know, and for the knowledge we are building internally, that those type of company varies a lot. It varies, obviously, the size of the company, the role, so CFO, the founder, and also the business they are in. So obviously, a little tech company that is based in Paris, compared to a company that is a restaurant, for example, in south of France, will have totally, different needs, obviously, and behavior with Bpifrance in general, and also with the digital experiences we are asking. So we are not really having, and that's why I was talking about this idea of toolbox. So a lot of ways to be able to conduct research and really understand in depth our users, and also creating this, let's say, this almost this muscle of finding the right tool at the right moment, to really understand the problem or the opportunity we want to solve, but not really depending of a certain population.
Very nice, thank you. I think that's it from my side, Daniel. Maybe
Yeah,
you want
so
to do the last.
yeah, so we are reaching the end of our super interesting expert talk. So thank you so much, Jan. So one last thing before we go into the final slide is, I would like to ask you, So based on your current situation as a design team, and based also on your current capabilities, what are you investing on? Like what type of tools or training? So where do you see you need to grow? Like, is there any specific area you need to invest in your team?
Sure.
Do you need more designers?
I think we actually need to to get deeper and deeper into understanding the next challenge we want to solve. So we've been able to understand certain I would say main issues for entrepreneurs or bankers or partners, and I give certain example. Now more and more we are covering, and we obviously need to continue, on a daily basis to be, better, develop our skill, etc., etc. But I think here the challenge we have is really understanding what is happening after the financial experience for our end users, and so not just the financial product, but also, I was mentioning the beyond banking solutions. This is a new problem space we just started to get into. Like on a product and on an experience challenge, this is the most challenge we have right now. And obviously, we want to continue to address certain challenges, such as we have this big challenge about reducing carbon footprint, helping entrepreneurs to reduce their carbon footprint. How do we make that in an experience that is both digital and hybrid? Those are really some really large problem space. On a design perspective, I think we need to be able to continue to accelerate and find better way to really focus and like reduce our operation, optimize our operation. So we are, for example, playing with use cases from AI, for example, just to obviously not just for the hype of it, but just to be able to have better teams that are running, sharing more knowledge, etc., etc., and also having all designers in their career ladder, also to progress into certain areas of their skills. And on this one, and I think we still this journey is still ongoing, continue to develop this business acumen, this strategy acumen, and so that all designer at every level of the company can really be an advocate for design
At
principle.
every level, yes.
Yeah,
that's
and
great.
this is extremely important, and I think this is a key challenge. Continue to advocate on what is design, what we can do, and yeah, and to continue to diffuse that.
Yeah, super nice, beautiful. So thank you so much. It has been a really great presentation from your side. It's incredible to see what's happening in that Bpifrance, and I think you're doing a great job, John. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, so related to the last question about investments, guess what? That's our main theme for this third edition of the George UX conference. So you are more than welcome to join our event. I'm gonna paste somewhere the link to our event. You will be there at Vienna visiting us, John. We are very happy about that.
Yeah, I'm really happy, and I'm really happy also to connect with also fellow designers. So yeah, really impatient to and looking forward to that.
Yes. So if you're curious to know what's happening in the financial sector in terms of design, we created the conference, the George UX conference, with the theme Shaping Finances by Design. And we have incredible speakers, so around 14 speakers. We have Revolut, Wise, JP Morgan, Newbank, you name it. But also we are curious about the outsider perspective. And this year we have Duolingo also joining. So we will see how that goes, because we will mix a little bit between investments as a topic of wealth management, but also investing in yourself or in your team. So stay tuned for that. Anything else to add, Lovro, before we go?
Yes, the chat is also very, very positive. Thanks a lot, Jan. They're very, very happy with your performance. It was an amazing expert talk, and I'm glad to see you around in Vienna soon.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Then
So
that's the
with
end.
that said, thank you so much.
Ciao.
Ciao.
All right.